Hey guys, welcome to the first ever episode of Tea and Type, the show where me or Alex interviews or converses with other MBTI types. And I'm so excited for today's episode, and you should be too, because me and INFP takes Boris, the ENTP, to meme the INTJ, and Nader, the ENFJ, to an escape room. Will we escape? Let's find out. Escape rooms are a fun activity where you and your friends are stuck in this room and you have to solve the tasks and clues along the storyline, and if you succeed, you can escape the room. Obviously, we got a good distribution, which was pretty much by accident, but I do realize that we don't have any sensors, which can be a huge problem because I thought that for an escape room, you want someone with good SI to be meticulous and detail-oriented and notice the details, and you want someone with good SE to actually notice what's going on around them. So right away, look what we got here. Me, my blind spot is SE. So I have an SE blind spot. The INTJ has repressed SE. ENTP has no SE, just like me. And so the ENFJ has to supply all of the SE. And for him, it's only tertiary. So I was like, okay, we're going to be in trouble there. And then I had to supply all of the SI and for me, it's tertiary. So it's not even that good. SI is the blind spot function of the ENFJ. INTJ doesn't have it at all, and the ENTP is repressing his SI, so here's what we're working with. This is the team that we have, and now we have to live with it. I'm going to start off with the INTJ because actually NISE is the skill that you need for this type of escape room. How was your escape room experience?
It's okay. Yeah, it was nice.
Which task did you find the most difficult?
I'd say do you need time to think about this?
His greatest strength was definitely seeing a pattern from all the disparate data points. And I know it's kind of surprising because he has repressed SE, and he actually doesn't see all of the SE data points. What do you think was the most fun about the room, I guess, as a whole?
The whole thing? I don't know, connecting the dots and everything, that was pretty exciting.
So from this, I finally understood this whole concept of the NI leap, which is when you see an NI big picture pattern or idea, even though you didn't see all the data points. So maybe, for example, there's 10 objects in the room, and if you see all of them, there's a clear pattern. But to me, you would just kind of see 2 objects or 3 objects, and then he would just be like, guys, this is the pattern. But then he wouldn't be able to complete the task because he just didn't see all of the other objects, at least not very quickly. The other thing that he was pretty good at, which was kind of surprising, was delegating tasks. So that's obviously TE, but I mean, he wasn't great at it. Because really, when you're an introvert, you tend to be using your introverted functions, so NI, FI loop, and it kind of takes a switching of gears to shift to your extroverted secondary function. So he was just constantly seeing these patterns, but then when we reach a point of desperation, that's when he's like, okay guys, you do this, you do this, you do this. Other good point is that he has a pretty good, efficient use of logic, which is not always a good thing, but when he finds data, he's very quick to just apply the data, which doesn't always work out, but sometimes it does. For example, there was this door that had a number on top and a lock, and he was like, what if that's just a number? And then we were like, no, it can't be that simple. And it really was. Okay, so negative points, as I already talked about, his SE is kind of low down there, so sometimes he doesn't see all of the data, at least not in a short amount of time. Sometimes he's so quick to apply the data that he's not paying attention to how this data fits in a system. Sometimes there's several pieces of data in the room that all have to work together, and you have to combine all of this information in order to escape the room. And then the final thing is communicating his findings.
How was it collaborating with other people in this situation? Like, easy, hard, weird?
Okay. Easy.
I guess that might be like the FE blind spot that he has. Like, no, don't get me wrong, like, he works really well on a team, but sometimes when he finds a pattern, he would just not tell any of us, or he would, like, very quietly tell one person. So, in contrast, for example, the ENFJ, he was really great at communicating. So, okay, alright, let's move on to ENFJ.
What are you gonna ask me?
How was the escape room experience for an ENFJ?
Challenging?
Strong points, definitely communication. Whenever he had any findings, he would just make sure to say it like loudly and say it to everyone. His SE was the highest among all of us, which meant that he was the most touchy-feely. Like, he would literally get an object and try to see if it fits into other places, which, you know, sometimes it was helpful, sometimes it was less helpful, but yeah, we definitely needed like one person to be doing that.
Well, what do you think you did best at and worst at?
Just like pressing buttons in the escape room and trying to move everything forward, I guess. Just deciding to take action.
He didn't really have like an NI leap, unlike the INTJ, but I think it's because he needed more time. You know, he was in the extroverted loop, like FE, SE, FE, SE, so he needed to like shift gears to go into his NI. So after the escape room, he thought back to it, like he reflected on the experience, and then he was like, oh yeah, like I see all these patterns now in hindsight.
So I just dismissed it in my mind, and it's like, get rid of this information, it's not useful. My conclusion is this is useless. Whereas my SE is like, this is going to be used later.
The advantage of higher SE is that he could just, you know, see more things. Weakest point was definitely memorization. So there were a lot of tasks we were not allowed to bring pen and paper, so there were some tasks that requires you to like memorize stuff.
Biggest challenges?
Biggest challenge is noticing details and memorizing numbers. I'm not good at that.
I guess another side.
Sometimes he would be like, okay, I'll memorize this, but then he just like memorize it wrong, and also attention to detail. So these two things both have to do with his SI blind spot. Yeah, and I will also say, like, for some reason the ENFJ felt definitely the most responsible for our success.
It was fun, I'm just disappointed we didn't get the win.
Why are you disappointed?
I don't know. They could have stepped up in a lot of ways. Delegated tasks, probably.
As being like the FE leader, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
Now let's go on to the ENTP. Okay, ENTP was just enjoying the experience. Like, he was like NEFE, just loving the experience, loving everything new, all the new ideas.
But I just like the experience because you're wondering what's important, what's not important, and when we're making assumptions, and it's so exciting. I'll know in 10 minutes, but right now I don't know. I really don't know.
That's totally different from my experience.
Really?
Just like figure this out. We're on a timer. This person's gonna die. I'm gonna feel guilty. I don't know.
World's overpopulated. Stupid enough to get caught by a killer, can't help it. For me, it was an exciting experience. Like, it was the first time in that kind of setting. I just liked observing actually others. How do people interact? How do I relate to the situation? What can I solve?
Unfortunately for the escape room, NESI is just not really that important.
How do you think your NE came into this, or if at all?
Potentially seeing connections. Like when I looked at the phone, I knew there was some mapping going on, but others probably saw that too.
The whole point of the escape room is like there's so much central data in the room. You're supposed to like take a quick overview of all the data points and then see a pattern. So that's NISE by default. NESI is a bit different. So instead of seeing all the data forming one possibility, the right possibility, NESI is like, okay, let's get stuck on one object and think of multiple ideas surrounding the one object. For example, I did this. Like at one point there was this diary on the table and I read the title of the diary and I was thinking, oh, how does this relate to the storyline? Are there any meanings to these words in this title of the diary? Totally useless. Obviously, it's a useful skill to have in a lot of situations. For example, if someone's like, you gotta write a short story from this one word prompt and the word is crystal, and I'll be like, okay, I have like 5 story ideas. So useful in a lot of situations, but completely unuseful in this particular escape room. So yeah, the ENTP had many ideas, but it was hard for him and me to stumble upon like the right idea. So that would be like the weak point. And the other weak point is of course bad memory.
Also was painfully aware that there was lack of follow through on my part, like in terms of the memorization. I knew we had to memorize it, but it was just so hard to actually do it.
The strongest point of the ENTP was definitely TI. He definitely knew intuitively that information and logic fit into a system. There was this one task where we find out a bunch of different numbers based on a series of clocks, and the INTJ with his TE was like, okay, let's input these numbers in, and then it didn't work, so he's like, okay, now input them backwards. So I tried inputting them backwards and it didn't work, and the ENTP was like, guys, no, we're missing information, like there must be some other information to tell us a sequence of these numbers, and he was totally right about that.
And really trying to see what's important, what's the sequencing here, like that switch box on the corner. I thought, does the sequence matter? Because we first did the clocks, but we had to do that switch box first to get the clue. So just to be half aware of what could be, but to sort the reality from what may be, what's the most likely, like.
Okay, and now to me. So I had all the same challenges as the ENTP with like just looking at one object and coming up with lots of different ideas about this one object. For example, the girl who was kidnapped in this escape room storyline, she is like a beauty pageant person. So in one room there were a bunch of different posters, and one of the posters had a beautiful woman on it. So I was like, hey guys, maybe that means something. Like, oh my gosh, let me focus on this one poster. So that was completely not the point. You had to be looking at all the posters. My other weak point was, like, I have an SE blind spot, so sometimes when I'm really focused on one object, I literally just don't see what's around me. I think my weakest point was being totally stressed out, because I just get really anxious when there's a very short period of time, and so we were supposed to solve this escape room in 1 hour, which to me is like amazingly anxiety inducing. So when I'm like panicking, I don't fare that well. Okay, so strong points. Shockingly, my T was actually not bad. I'm usually just like quiet and working with the team, but there was one task where I knew the answer, and I was telling this person to like input the answer, and then like people started asking me like, oh, why does that work? Like, why do you know that that's the thing? I was like, stop it! Just put it in! See, I told you I was like stressed out by the time limit. So yeah, they put it in and it totally worked. And after the escape room, I was like, guys, I'm so sorry I was yelling at people. And then they were like, you were yelling? My other strong point was definitely having the strongest SI out of everyone. So sometimes when we had to like remember a 6-number sequence, I would just say like, okay, just let me do it. And and also seeing details. So finally, did we escape? No. No, it was pretty upsetting. We were really close actually. Like, I think there were like maybe 10 tasks. We completed like 8 of them, so we had 2 tasks left. And yeah, it was mainly because we figured out what to do super quickly, but lacking in both SI and SE as a group, we just couldn't actually do it fast enough. And I was thinking about this the whole time. I was thinking like, oh my gosh, if we only just had an ISTJ and an ISTP or ESTP, we would be out of there. Like, done, fast, boom. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about this topic, and it's all the information I could pull out of my friends at this point in time. Let me know what you thought in the comments. If you had to build like a perfect escape room team, like which functions would you choose?